We have so many opportunities these days to be angry because boundaries are being transgressed all over the place. Speaking to a friend last night who lives in Florida, and a good friend of hers wanted to get her visa renewed. She went to her local office, it was closed. She went to the next nearest city, and the passport office was closed. She had to travel several miles away to go to an open passport office. And that's not by accident. So we have all these shenanigans going on, and it's very difficult sometimes to maintain a sense of peace and equilibrium, or a sense of what can I do? And that's just this feeling of helplessness that we talk about frequently. Keeping with the topic, as I mentioned in the email, is that fire and light come together. Where there's fire, there's always light. And the fire can represent anger, a fiery anger, a fiery temper, that sort of thing. The task is how to transform that into something that doesn't destroy things, doesn't harm us or harm other people. Because we can get so angry at somebody, we carry a grudge, and then we're the one who suffers, and we can carry that grudge for years. Or someone will do something that makes us angry, and then we can sometimes take action against them and create harm in the doing, in our own response and reaction. And what I found too with myself and others is that oftentimes when we're angry, we are befuddled. We are asking ourselves questions like, why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? How could they do that? Those sorts of things begin to arise immediately. And that's confusion. And that's the confusion based on anger, because anger is always confused. Because like any other emotion that goes above a certain point, it hijacks our neocortex. It changes how we're thinking about things. So when we're thinking about transgressions, I doubt there's anyone on the planet that has no anger or grudges against anybody, or no resentments. It's something that's more or less universal. Things that have happened in the past that we may or may not remember, things that are happening today and yesterday that are upsetting. And the issue is that as long as we're resentment, we'll never find a solution. The resentment keeps us from seeing things clearly because the emotions overwhelm. The emotions were an earlier evolutionary development. It was earlier than the neocortex. So executive reasoning, executive functioning and reasoning and abstract reasoning, those are all later developments. And so as we've talked about quite a few times, is that when the survival system, the reptilian brain, gets stimulated, it sends the alarm bell to do something, whatever we can, to stay safe, and tends to shut down the neocortex. So we're not thinking clearly. So oftentimes, particularly when an offense is new, we won't really know what to think. We'll get depressed, we'll get sad, then we'll get angry, and we shouldn't be angry, so we get sad again. And we cry or break something or whatever, we start doing those kinds of things because we're still just really hurt and angry about something and can't just go and do something about it. Or we may go and do something about it and it's absolutely the wrong thing to do. And we wind up causing more harm, and we find that in the long run we have more anger and resentment than we did prior because what we did not work. It's like yelling at, let's say, somebody who's narcissistic, a boss or something like that, and you decided you're getting another job anyway, so you go in and you tell your boss off, and you yell at them and say you're this and you're that, and this happened and that. They don't care. It's like, they don't really care at all. And so what we've done, we've wasted a lot of energy, and we feel terrible afterwards. I don't know if you've noticed that whenever we're really any strong emotion, but particularly anger, after we're really angry, there's a hangover. And we don't feel so good. And that harms us because the the emotions of anger, the chemicals and the chemistry associated with that isn't good for us. So that's why we feel that hangover. It's like alcohol is a poison. It's a mild poison, right? You can drink a fair amount of it and not die. It's not like arsenic. But if you drink enough, you can die. And that's actually how, I don't know if you know this, but Dylan Thomas, famous poet, he died. Somebody challenged him to drink 16 shots of whiskey in the White Horse Tavern in New York City. And he did. And a few moments later, he was dead. So, he drank the poison. It's important to be careful about how we express our emotions. What I've also seen in real life is that as soon as we get some clarity, and we've talked about this before, and something has angered us or there's a transgression, and once we get some clarity about it, we get to see the situation quite clearly, and then we know how to take action. Then we have choices, but as long as we're confused and in a muddle, mentally and emotionally, we don't really know what to do. And frustration can set in, or self-pity can set in, or we can try the solution of hating somebody enough that somehow we'll feel better, that which doesn't make any sense when we think about it. But all the responses that we have relative to anger, most of them are just completely ineffective. And, we may find things from our past that we thought we'd forgiven, and when we're meditating or doing compassion exercises or something, we'll run across something from our past and find that there's still a lot of anger there. And those are important. Those are really important to, if they're there, to address and resolve. Because what we're doing is, that all that chemistry that comes along with anger, as I said a moment ago, that's really not good for us. I first found that concept in Buddhism. They talk about the 5 poisons, and anger and fear and jealousy and pride and so on and so forth. And I thought, well, that's a really interesting idea. What do they mean, poisons? And I realized that certainly can be taken metaphorically in terms of we're angry at someone else, we're really shortchanging ourselves in some way. But also, I believe we can take that quite literally in terms of when we're really angry or sad or fearful, the chemistry that arises that gives rise to the experience of the emotion is poisonous. In other words, it's not good for us. It's not going to kill us right away, like tomorrow or this evening, but all the signs and symptoms of when we have an episode of very strong emotion, we don't feel so good afterwards. Now, unless it's tears, sometimes in grieving, crying can be a relief. Other than that, because I don't know if you know this, but the chemistry of tears changes with our emotions. Happy tears are different than sad tears, so on and so forth. So they can be the kind of tears that's really a discharge of the grief or the sadness or whatever it is, and that can be very beneficial. But anger, fear, jealousy, loathing, that's hatred, those sorts of things, not good for us. The chemistry that's involved in that to support those and create those emotional experiences, it's not good for our body and can literally be considered poisonous. So, to be avoided at all costs. And we run into this a lot when doing compassion exercises, because compassion seems to flush everything up that's contradictory to compassion, which is what it's supposed to do, as we've talked about. The challenge is that when things come up, that's what we address. Those are the obstacles, so we start working through them with compassion. And as we've also discussed, that when we're working with compassion and we get to feeling overwhelmed or it seems like an impossible task, it's sometimes very beneficial to the fallback stance, so to speak, of doing loving kindness exercises. And we've done a couple of them, one for grief, and I forget there was one more, but anyway, we've done two of them, so I put together loving kindness phrases, loving kindness like phrases to deal with anger. And I'm hoping that the idea is that when doing phrases like this with a particular emotion, can help give us perspective without being overwhelming. And it can give us some phrases to use when we're in a situation, because it's sometimes difficult to not get swayed by the emotion and drawn into an emotional response, rather than feel the emotion and then channel that emotion into greater awareness and forgiveness or whatever else needs to occur. But we can't really take meaningful action as long as we are in the emotional state. And that it's only when we work with that emotional state to the point that we gain clarity and see things as they are, not how we would want them to be or puzzled by how they happen, that sort of thing, but see them as they are, then we can take a look at the situation and sit back and apply some mindfulness and go, what is the right thing to do here? And then usually we get very good direction and things begin to resolve. But as long as the question to ask is, do I have any clarity on this? And if the answer is no, then the first task is to gain some clarity. And we'll talk about how to do that. And then with clarity, adding compassion for oneself and the other person as being, and coming up with some sort of appropriate response that will make things better rather than worse. And ask compassion for grief. It should be posted by now. I did a session on compassion, loving kindness for grief. And that should be on the YouTube channel. If any of you do not have the YouTube channel link, let me know either now or later on in the session, and I can put the link in there. It's a private. They call it an unlisted website. I wanted to see how it populated and stuff. I'm thinking about making it public, but right now you need a link in order to get into the website. Okay, let's see if I can get the YouTube link. Let's do that now. Yeah, so feel free. Yeah, the gal who does my web design did a wonderful job doing all that. Okay, so we're going to do this in a loving kindness format. I'm going to change it a little bit. So rather than saying, what we're going to do is I have 4 sets of phrases and 4 phrases to a set. And we're going to go through one set 3 times, and then the second set 3 times, and the third and the fourth in the same manner. The reason is because I thought, I don't know of a way to encapsulate everything that needs to be done in the process of addressing and resolving anger that can be condensed down to 4 phrases. And so I found that different parts of each of these sets have a little bit different orientation. So we'll do that and see how it goes. And we'll start, as we always do, with a mindfulness meditation. And we'll end with a bit of a compassion exercise as well. So finding a comfortable spot, places everyone, and and we will we'll get to it. We'll begin. And just settling into the silence like the bell. And just settling down. And noticing the breath. And noticing if there's any constriction or tension, and that the breath is getting down into the bottom of the lungs if possible. And as we settle in, letting the thoughts of the day or the past or the future float away. And when anything arises, a thought or a feeling, simply recognizing it has arisen and letting it go and coming back to the present moment. And as we continue to settle in, perhaps noticing the points of contact with the floor or the chair or wherever you're sitting. And feeling your weight, the weight of the body on the chair or the floor, held in place by present moment awareness. Allowing ourselves to continue to settle in. Allowing everything else to float away if you can. And coming to that resting point in between everything as just being right here, right now. And perhaps noticing a sense of ease when we do so. And allowing ourselves to just be for a few moments. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. And if we notice tension creeping in, simply noticing and releasing it. And now bringing to mind an incident which has caused anger and is not yet resolved. And as usual, choosing something on a scale of 1 to 10, about a 3, maybe a 4, because this is practice. And when something is mild or moderate, it's easier to practice. And as we gain skills over time and learn the process, we get better able to handle the more intense things. And bringing the incident or incidents clearly to mind, allowing them to arise in your awareness. And the emotion. And getting a sensation of the anger. Only to the point of being able to work with it and not to be overwhelmed by it, but certainly to feel it. And noticing also where this anger arises in the body, and a sense of its dynamics, whatever that may be. And noticing pain if there is any, and perhaps some of the thoughts you had at the time which are still present, with the intention for its resolution at some point, that it's not something we want to hang on to. And keeping it in mind and the emotions in mind. Can repeat these phrases over to yourself as I say them. May I set aside judgment of myself and others. May I attend to my behavior rather than the actions of another. May I attend to the consequences of my own behavior. May I maintain mental and emotional balance as best I can. And allowing the meaning of those phrases and the words ripen and take hold. Moving to the second set. May I forgive myself and others for transgressions. May I treat myself with kindness in life's difficulties. May I take proper care of myself and my body. May I sleep well at night, regardless of stress. And allowing the meaning, the nourishment of the meaning soak in if you can. And circulate. In the third set, may I let go of blame for others' actions. May I forgive myself for my indiscretions. May I turn aside self-criticism. May I stand on wise principles. And in this last set of 4, I'll repeat 3 times. May I attend to my behavior rather than the actions of another. May anger transform into clarity. May clarity transform into wisdom. May wisdom and compassion transform into positive action. And letting the meaning and the purpose of these words settle in as best you can. May I attend to my behavior rather than the actions of another. May anger transform into clarity. May clarity transform into wisdom. May wisdom and compassion transform into positive action. And feeling the resonance of the meaning and purpose. May I attend to my behavior rather than the actions of another. May anger transform into clarity. May clarity transform into wisdom. may wisdom and compassion transform into positive action. And bringing forth the presence of the totality of all the phrases and the feelings and ideas and understandings that have arisen, whatever they may be. And we'll proceed with a compassion for oneself exercise. So bringing to mind the sum total of the difficulties or barbs in life or misdeeds, pangs of conscience, negative self-evaluations, whatever's around there in the stew pot. Allowing compassion to flow in. And those parts of our being and our psyche that needs compassion, allowing those parts to absorb this compassion. You can see it as light or music or just a feeling. The reality of compassion, allowing it to flood your being. No matter how large or small the experience or the grudge, the compassion is the medicine. And knowing that compassion is an infinite resource. And always present and always available when we turn our attention to it. So whatever we have done or not done, or whatever has happened to us, those parts of ourselves that need compassion, can absorb this, and absorbing it as best you can. And perhaps noticing that now compassion flows in all on its own. Sometimes all we have to do is open the door. and allowing ourselves to bask in this ocean of compassion. And allowing as best we can the parts of our being that need compassion to absorb it to whatever extent we can. And coming to a point where we feel sated, saturated, a fullness, a completion for now. And allowing our body to absorb this experience as water is absorbed by a sponge. So that in the moment when the bell rings again, you can bring this with you as you go about your day. And come back to it at any time.